The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
They were intended for the judge to read, and not to undermine the testimony of the victims or re-traumatize them in any way. We would never want to do that.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people behavioral analysis and practical psychology on stages and television shows all over the world. Just last week, the highly controversial trial of actor Danny Masterson, most known for his role as Hyde in That 70s Show, came to a conclusion with a 30 years to life sentence in prison. Shortly after, audiences were outraged to find out that ex-co-stars Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis had written character letters in favor of Masterson for the judge to consider during the sentencing. As a result, on Instagram, Ashton and Mila released an apology video to explain their intentions and what they did not intend with these letters. And that is the video that we're looking at today. It's a brief video, it's about a minute long, but there's a lot going on with the facial expressions, with the word choice, and I'm sure even on an intuitive level, a lot of you picked up quite a few things. So let's dive right in, starting from the beginning.
We are aware of the pain that has been caused by the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson.
We support victims. We have done this historically through our work and will continue to do so in the future.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years so that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
Okay, I'm going to do this in a bit of a jumbled order. I'm going to start with Mila Kunis, who was the second one to speak. We're going to look at her body language, then her word choice, then we're going to look at Ashton Kutcher and the overall mood of the video. So with her, there's quite a few interesting things happening, one of which I'm sure a lot of the regular viewers caught was 2 eyebrow flashes at really key moments. So eyebrow flashing is when the eyebrows go up for a brief moment, then back down. And this has been very much studied in social psychology. And in most cases, when we see an eyebrow flash, it comes down to one of 3 things. The first one is emphasis. We emphasize with our eyebrows. The second one is a social greeting or social approval, some sort of social moment, like when we see someone and we greet them, sometimes those eyebrows go up. And finally, with surprise. With surprise, our eyebrows go up as well. A really easy way to kind of summarize what all this means is that eyebrow flashes mean that something is important. We're giving something importance. In fact, there's research that has shown that when we're giving instructions to someone, we do the eyebrow flash just before the most important part of the instruction, or we're about to get to the important part, so emphasis. But when we're greeting someone, it's also, I'm giving you importance, I'm acknowledging you, and with surprise, it's, oh my God, there's something here that deserves attention. There's something important here. So as eyebrow flashes mean something is important, something is going on, something has my attention. So the first eyebrow flash we see from Mila Kunis is when she says, we support victims, we have done this historically through our work. And with historically, we get this eyebrow flash. And this is a very common eyebrow flash of emphasis. So she's emphasizing that historically, if you look into our history, the work that we've done, we've consistently supported victims of these kinds of crimes. There can also absolutely be an element of seeking social approval here with the audience, of saying, you know, we've done this historically, so cut us some slack over here. Obviously, we're dealing with 2 experienced public speakers here, and in a moment, we're going to talk about how that plays into behavioral analysis, because I get a lot of questions about that. But in this case, that eyebrow flash could be emphasis and seeking that social approval for their mission and the work that they've done from the audience. Notice how immediately after that, she says, we will continue to do this. And as she says continue, we see a slow blink. So her eyes close for a moment as she says continue, and she slows down on continue. This is something that is baseline for her. We're going to see it numerous times in this video where she emphasizes something with that slow blink. And that's quite common. When we want to drive a point home and how serious it is, quite often we close our eyes as we emphasize that. So eyebrow flash can emphasize, or closing the eyes can also be for emphasis. When she's done her first little segment, we immediately see a lip compression, so the lips compress. That turns into a lip lick, so she starts licking her lips. And then that turns into her chewing the inside of her mouth. From side to side, we could see that quite visibly. Now the lip compression is really interesting because they're both doing it. When they're done their sentences, they're both going to a lip compression. And we're going to talk about why that's happening when we're talking about Ashton Kutcher's facial expressions. But with Mila Kunis, from there she goes into a lip lick. Now lip licking is something that happens in high stress. In this video, It's not happening a whole lot in the beginning, but we see it really spike after she's done speaking. The reason we associate lip licking to high stress is because when we're stressed, the mouth dries out. It's also a grooming gesture. It brings more color to the lips and makes us seem more presentable. So when we're really focusing on how we're coming off and we're a little stressed and we're wondering if, okay, was that the best way to say that? Very often we see this lip licking. We also see it often before somebody starts to speak, to kind of groom and start to speak. And then that biting on the inside of the cheeks, this is something that in behavioral analysis has a lot of names in the research. It's called adapters, pacifiers, or self-soothing gestures, and is typically any massage-like gesture that tends to calm us down when we're feeling stressed. But very often we see this kind of thing inside the mouth. A lot of people will run their tongue across the bottom lip or in the cheek like this kind of thing, because that does feel quite nice. It is quite self-soothing, but often we also just nervously bite the inside of the cheek, and that's what she's got going on here. So after she's done her sentence, we're seeing a lot of these signs of stress. I think there are a couple of clues as to why this is happening in this moment. So you'll notice as she's doing all that, as soon as she's done with the compression, with the licking, with all these gestures, she turns towards him, like sort of to pass it back to him, but she doesn't look at him. She stops short of him and kind of looks off into the distance. I think basically in her head, she's constantly aware of her speech and what she's saying and if that was the right way to say it and if she said anything wrong, and thinking about what she's about to say. We're going to get a lot of clues on that. He's a little more stoic before and after he speaks, but with her, we're getting a lot of these clues of self-reflection. So I think that in this moment, she's kind of passing it over to him, but just kind of thinking to herself, was that good? Did I get that? Okay, I think that was good, and now we can go on. So we kind of see this pause of reflection and self-awareness, and lip licking is very consistent with self-awareness. Then she comes back. Then we have the second eyebrow flash, which I know that a lot of the regular viewers caught, and I got a ton of messages on Instagram of people saying, oh my God, did you see that eyebrow flash at that moment? And it's not even when she's talking, it's as a reaction to something that Ashton Kutcher is saying. Now again, later we're gonna talk about actors and behavioral analysis and how it gets affected, but there's almost no way that that was intentional. It was just this really quick eyebrow flash, specifically when Ashton Kutcher was saying that Danny Masterson's family asked them to write these letters. And in that very same moment, while she's still chewing the inside of that lip, we see this really quick eyebrow flash straight to the camera from Mila Kunis.
So Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters.
And I think we're going right back to the exact reason her eyebrows flashed the first time. First, emphasis. This wasn't of our own volition. His family asked us. This is important. I also believe that there's a giant social element to this because she's turned this way, and the moment he mentions that the family asked them, she briskly turns towards the camera, and then we get that eyebrow flash. So she turns to the camera, that's the intent, and then we see the eyebrow flash immediately after that. And we also see a bit of a withheld smile. Now, this could very well be because of the way that she's chewing the inside of her lips. It's making it seem like there's a smile there, but I also kind of feel like in her demeanor, there's just a little bit of a smile in that moment with that eyebrow flash. And I think this is a big social moment because he's talking about how the family asked them to do this, and I think she's seeking approval from the audience and saying, once again, this wasn't our own initiative. We were asked by his family, please believe us. You know, think about how you might do the same thing if someone's family asked you. So very much trying to socially connect human to human. One last thing I want you to notice with her body language is towards the end of him talking, we see her do something that we call taffy eyes. So he's talking and she turns towards him, but it's not this. Her eyes stay on the camera. This is why we call it taffy eyes. It's like the eyes are stuck to the camera and then they go whomp like this. So this is something that's very common. When two people are speaking and there's a plan on who's going to speak, it's kind of like we often see this, you know, it's kind of, you done? Is it me? Is it my turn? So I think this is another indication, and we're going to get a few more, that she's a little uncertain about when she's supposed to speak, and she's a little unclear about whose turn it is to talk. So in that moment, we're really getting this clear view of like, because she's keeping her eyes on the camera, like, it might be my turn to speak, but she's turning towards him to try to figure out if he's done. But it's not this like brisk look. She's kind of still holding onto the camera in case it's her turn to speak. Okay, so we looked at her facial expressions. Now let's look at her word choice. So she starts with, we support victims. A very direct statement. There's no distancing there, no ambiguity, no excuse making. So this very direct, to the point statement. And she continues with, we have done this historically. So this whole thing, we support victims, we've done this historically, is a resume or convincing statement. They mean the same thing. And it's basically whenever we try to build character. So often in interviewing or in interrogation, when something comes up and the person's a little self-conscious or they feel like they're being accused of something, they will start building their character. Now here's the really subtle thing for me when it comes to resume statements that makes a huge difference. When I see a resume statement come out of nowhere, I'm not accusing someone of something, I'm just asking them a question. Like I might ask someone during a job interview, how was your experience at your previous employment? And all of a sudden they go, oh, you know, I'm a very honest person. I was very honest the entire time that I was there. That's weird because I didn't accuse you of anything. I just asked a simple question. So what's this honesty? Where's this honesty issue coming from? However, in the face of an accusation, when someone is being accused of something, resume statements or convincing statements are not out of place. Because if I tell you something like, I know you stole such and such, and you go, I'm an honest person, I would never steal, I've never stolen a thing in my life, that is an acceptable counter to my accusation. So in her case, is it out of left field? Absolutely not. The goal of this video is to address the accusation, so it makes sense to bring up this kind of character statement or this resume statement in saying that we've historically supported victims in our work. Now, you can look at that and go, well, what's that got to do with this? You know, whether you've supported other victims, you may have failed to support these ones, so the two don't relate. You can look at it that way. However, it's not that suspicious that there would be a convincing statement within this video. Okay, now we're gonna move on and talk about Ashton Kutcher. In that clip, we're gonna talk about actors and behavioral analysis. We're gonna look at the rest of the apology video and try to figure out what's really going on with Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. But before we do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on for more behavioral analysis and practical psychology content. And for regular viewers who want to encourage the channel, I will leave a link in the description where you could find out more about the membership program and how you can become a member. Okay, so Ashton Kutcher, the first thing I noticed was that in the beginning of the video, there's no greeting. There's no, hey everyone, hey guys, hope everyone's doing well, nothing like that. They just jump right into the topic. Now, there could be a couple of reasons for this. It could be that there was a little bit more film before this, but they decided to be more effective to cut and start here. It could be that they did several takes and found that this was just the best rhythm to jump right into it. Whatever the reason, it was just interesting to me how there's no greeting in the beginning. You'll also notice that throughout the entire video as he's speaking, or even just sitting there while she's talking, it's baseline for him for his eyebrows to be down like this. Now, very often people see that and go, oh, it's anger. The person must be angry because their eyebrows are down. One gesture very rarely can definitely mean anything in behavioral analysis, much less eyebrows down, because you would have to see a couple of other things to be more confident that it's anger. For example, those upper eyelids opening up is extremely indicative of anger. It gives that glare and tension in the jaw. These are all part of the universal expression of anger. So just the eyebrows alone could be anger, but it's not necessarily that. It could be frustration. It could be deep thought when we're thinking about something, the eyebrows tend to go down. It could be light in his face that's causing the eyebrows to come down just a little bit. So it could be a lot of different things. Could be anger, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be. Right as he talks about the pain that the letters caused, we see his head dip down like this for a moment. And this is something we often see in shame. When we're ashamed of ourselves, our head might go down. In fact, we even say it. He bowed in shame. So earlier I said that Mila Kunis with the eyebrow flash, there's no way that was deliberate. In this case, there's no way for me to tell you if this is deliberate or not. An experienced actor would, in trying to communicate shame, bow their head down like this, but it could also very well be that he's actually feeling shame. I will say this, however, throughout the video, he's not doing much to butter on or try to oversell. He's pretty flat with the delivery. He's just saying the words, and you can make of that what you will, but he's just saying the words, and there aren't any efforts made to really sell it. So it's quite possible that as he's thinking of the pain, for a moment he just hangs his head down because he's actually feeling not great about the pain that he caused to a demographic that he's worked hard to support. When he's done speaking, he does something that he will do every time in this video when he's done speaking, and you can look for it when we look at some more footage later, and we see a lip compression, and he nods his head like this when he's done, so at the same time. And this is something we see very common in videos like this where two or multiple people are talking and passing it over to each other, And it basically is a nonverbal way of saying, that's about all I have to say there, your turn to speak. So lip compression typically is associated to withheld opinion or disagreement. So if you say something that I disagree with, you might see me go, not so sure. Or if people are talking and I'm holding something in, like this. But also commonly, if we're done talking, so it's not necessarily that we're withholding an opinion, but like we're done, I've said everything I have to say, we just kind of do that lip compression, like that's it, that's all I got. So that's what we're seeing there. And with that nod, it's kind of like, yep, that was it for me, your turn now. One thing I want to talk about with the language specifically is a very important choice of words, because he says the pain that was caused by the character letters.
The pain that has been caused by the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson.
It's not the pain that we caused by writing the character letters, it's the character letters that caused the pain. So there's some distancing there. The pain is being caused by the letters, not by us. There might also be another distancing word there. It's really subtle, and I could be wrong about it. So I'm calling on all the linguistic experts who are watching this, especially those of you who have studied the English language in great depth, to help me out here, because I'm not 100% sure. So let me know in the comments. And it's this. He says the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson. Now, as far as I know, in the way that I use it, on behalf of means instead of. So I am speaking to this council on behalf of the citizens of the city. So I am replacing them. In this case, I'm not sure behalf is the right word. If you were to call my doctor's office for me, because I can't, I'm busy and I ask you to do me a favor, you would call and say, I'm calling on behalf of Spidey instead of Spidey. But if I asked you to write a letter of recommendation for me to someone, you wouldn't say, I'm writing you this letter of recommendation on behalf of Spidey. You don't write a character letter on behalf of someone, right? You write a character letter in support of someone. So there's a part of me that's wondering, did he not want to say in support of, in defense of? Because all these things make it seem like he's defending Danny Masterson or supporting Danny Masterson. So use the word like behalf, which creates a little bit more distance and a little bit less of a stand. I'm actually curious about that. The last thing I want to talk about before we move on from the first part of the clip is decisions. So you guys know I talk about this a lot, that one of the things I pay the most attention to when I'm performing on stage is decisions. The decisions that people make tell us a lot about themselves. And in this case, it's really fascinating because there's a contrast if you really pay attention to the decisions. If we look at it aesthetically, you'll notice that there isn't much effort put into this. You know, they've got thrown on some t-shirts, her hair is tied, his is a little messy. It doesn't look like they've put on a whole lot of makeup or anything like that. This isn't produced. You know, we've watched videos on this channel, apology videos that were highly produced and others that weren't. This is definitely not. There isn't a camera crew there or anything like that. It doesn't look like they're on a set or anything like that. It's just very casual. So they're trying to communicate that this is just us turning the camera on and speaking to our viewers, our fans, our followers casually. So that's what they're trying to communicate. But if you listen, that's not what's being communicated at all. Because they're never talking over each other. They're never kind of, you know, actually interacting. It's you're saying this, I'm saying that, now it's your turn, now it's my turn. And we're even seeing again with Mila Kunis these moments where she's not sure, oh, you're done, okay, it's my turn, and she's thinking about what she said or what she's about to say. So it is planned. We could tell that it's planned in the way that it's being communicated. I want to really quickly talk about behavioral analysis when it comes to actors, because very often on the channel I'll get comments from people saying like, how can you do behavioral analysis on an actor and distinguish between acting or what's real, what the real facial expressions are. And I even get some comments of people saying like, oh, that eyebrow flash, I did it on purpose. Or that thing with the blink rate, they did that on purpose. The flutter was on purpose. So here's the thing. I have consulted on a lot of Hollywood productions. I have coached a lot of actors. And even professionally for over 15 years, I've been a live performer. I've worked with live performers and I've worked with some of the biggest creative directors in the world. And in all those years, and all the coaching that I've witnessed, and all the directing I've witnessed, I've never seen a coach or a director tell an actor, oh, you know what, when you're doing that anger, let's see those upper eyelids come up a little bit more, and I want to see more nostril flaring. That's not how it works. Most actors are not aware of the little details of an expression that we're supposed to see. They're not aware of the little details that go into a shrug when you don't know something. They don't know these things. Now, I do know that a lot of actors watch this channel for little tips here and there as to the way something is supposed to look. But overall, when actors are acting, they're not thinking about the micro details of the face and how they need to portray to really sell anger. The way method acting works is that they get into character, and a lot contributes to this, and they try as much as they can to feel that emotion, to channel that emotion. But they're playing off the other actors, they're playing off the set, they're playing off the mood. Often it takes them a while to get into character. Very often on sets, we see actors stay in character between takes. This isn't something that's always really easy to do. So when you see an actor really convincingly being sad in a movie, it's not because they're telling themselves, okay, get those inner eyebrows up and make sure to droop the face, here we go. That's not what they're doing. They're feeling that moment. They're becoming the character, they're feeling the sadness, and they're just letting the expressions do what they would do. That's what great acting is. So can actors do this off set or off stage? Yes, they absolutely can, but not that much more than any one of the rest of us. It blows my mind when people don't realize that, yes, they're actors, but in a social setting, we're all actors. We're all putting on a mask. Who hasn't been in a social situation where they're behaving confident and trying to act confident when they're absolutely melting of anxiety on the inside? Who doesn't put on a polite face or a smile at work when they're really bothered by something that's happening in their personal lives? We're all putting on masks all the time, and the goal of behavioral analysis is to see through that mask, to see the moments where somebody slips up and we're seeing those signs of stress. We're seeing that moment of anger that they're trying to conceal. That's what we do. So yeah, actors have experience acting, but they have even more experience being human beings. And sometimes that human emotion just leaks out. They're not on set, they're not filming, they're not in character, they don't have directors and other actors to play off of. So when actors are off set, they are humans. And like all other humans, they let things that they're feeling or thinking slip. If that wasn't the case, then the cold readings that I do would fail every time I encountered an actor. But they don't. I'm fine.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
They were intended for the judge to read, and not to undermine the testimony of the victims or re-traumatize them in any way. We would never want to do that. And we're sorry if that has taken place.
Our heart goes out to every single person who's ever been a victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or rape.
All right, so in this one, right in the beginning, as she says, the letters were not written to question the legitimacy. We see a full-on shrug, both shoulders up, even the eyebrows, as she's going no with her head like this. So there's some amazing research on shrugging from Université de Paris-Nanterre by Camille Debras. And I'll leave a link in the description. You guys could learn all about it. Really fascinating stuff. But basically, it comes down to this. Whenever we see a shrug, and a shrug could be shoulders, shoulders and hands, shoulders and eyebrows, a lot of things go up with a shrug. Sometimes a head tilt like this as well. But when we see a shrug, it denotes a lack of something. So I don't something. I don't know, I don't care, I don't want to do that. And very often, I don't know how else to say this. So again, she emphasizes a lot with gestures. And in this moment, this could be a moment of like, I don't know how else to tell you this, but these were absolutely not a way to question the legal system. So it could be her just kind of pleading with the audience saying, I don't know how else to explain this to you. It really wasn't the case. A loss of words. Then she goes on to say, or the validity of the jury's ruling. And again, we see that slow blink and the emphasis on validity as she slows down the speech a little of the jury's ruling. So this is important. We are not questioning the validity of the jury here. We continue to see some emphasis with those slow blinks towards the end. And all the way at the end, we see that blink rate ramp up like crazy. So again, blink rate is one of those things that's very much researched and associated to high stress. When we get stressed, the eyes tend to dry up a little, and blinking a lot tends to correct that. So at the end of this, we're getting a very high blink rate, which is much higher than the rest of this video. There are little bursts where we see little flutters or increased blink rate for a little while, but this is like spikes at the end. And again, this is not something that's intentional. Nobody's going in their heads, oh, make sure to blink a lot as you're saying that. That's just not how it works. Another place that research has seen blink rate increase enormously is when we're processing. When we're committing things to memory or retrieving things from memory, we see a lot of these blinks. So I think that at the end here, We're getting the stress of having gone through this, of getting through this, of talking about a very sensitive topic and navigating this and making sure she's saying the right words. So I think she's stressed about this. I think that there's an ideal way she had to say this and certain words she had to stick to, because again, they know all eyes, all ears are on them, and people are listening really carefully to every word. So she's stressed about that idea, but also making sure she's getting it all right, which is also why we might see those eyes go up like this. I really don't subscribe to the idea that the direction of the eyes can always tell us if someone is being truthful or making something up or retrieving a memory. It's really not that simple, but quite commonly when we are thinking, the eyes might dance or they might go up, again, as we're retrieving thoughts. So there's a lot of stuff here at the end that would indicate that she's trying to really retrieve maybe a script, maybe a way of saying something. So we're getting those flutters and we're getting that thought of, okay, let me make sure to say this right. Very sensitive topic there at the end. When it comes to Ashton, there isn't that much more to say. It's very similar to the first bit. Also notice how she's reactive when he's talking, putting that emphasis, nodding along. When she's talking, he's just sitting there and just waiting for his lines. And there's no real interpretation of this. I mean, anything would be subjective to, you can look at it and go, he's just here to deliver his lines. He agreed on this is what he's going to say, so that's his message. Others might look at it and go, it feels a little impersonal. It doesn't feel like he's attached to the message. I would understand either one, but there's nothing for me to analyze. There's nothing for me to be like, oh, that gesture suggests such and such, because there aren't really too many gestures happening. Okay, so what does this all come down to? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think that they are in a very difficult position, between a rock and a hard place. Here's why. The family of someone that they grew up with, that they probably considered a brother, because they were on this show together for like 10 years when they were young, and this person's family is coming to them and saying, please write a character letter for this judge to see about your experience. And they wrote these letters based on their experience. Now this directly contrasts with the fact that Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis are spokespeople for sex crimes, big time. Ashton Kutcher co-founded an organization that aims to put an end to human trafficking. And he's quite passionate about that. He's spoken about that on social media, on television numerous times. So he's a big spokesperson for that. And here he is writing a character letter for someone who at this point was convicted of this crime. He was found guilty by the American justice system, and you're being asked to write a character letter for this person, who's someone that you were very close to and maybe didn't know about this side of his behavior. So this has sparked a massive debate online, because you have some people saying, well, he didn't have that experience with Danny Masterson. He was asked to write about his experience. So if a friend of mine or a family member of mine was convicted of a crime and somebody came to me and said, tell us what your experience with this person is, I would just write a letter and say, here's my experience. Doesn't mean anything, not taking anything away. This is just my experience. So that's the way some people look at it. And others are looking at it going, no. At this point, he was convicted of a crime. A jury found him guilty. So you have no business defending such a person. So this is the big debate. These are the two positions that are happening, and it creates a very difficult road for them to navigate. Because if they steer a little bit towards to one side, it's how dare you turn your back on a friend, like why aren't you standing up for your friend? And if they steer to the other side, it's how dare you invalidate the experience of these victims and defend someone who did such a horrible thing. And this is why I feel like we're getting this pretty planned, carefully scripted thing where Ashton Kutcher is just expressing the words, but at the end of the day, they're never apologizing for having written the letters. They're more so apologizing for the pain caused by the letters. And it's quite interesting how they're doing that, to where they're never addressing and saying, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have written the letters. So I guess my one question, and for me it really comes down to this, my one question to them would be the following. Do you believe that Danny Masterson actually committed those crimes? As people who know him, do you believe that he committed those crimes? Take everything into consideration, give me a yes or a no. If the answer to that question is yes, then I believe they never should have written those letters. If the answer to that question is no, then they shouldn't have to apologize for those letters, because they're just saying, this is what we believe. And I believe that's why this video seems to be just kind of treading right down the middle, to where they're never saying, we shouldn't have written those letters, that was a mistake. There's never accountability. There's never them saying, that was a mistake, shouldn't have done that. They're simply saying, We do not want to invalidate the experience of a victim. We do not want to invalidate the justice system. We just wrote what we thought of this person. So for me, is this legit? It depends on how you look at it. If it's just a nice message for them to clarify that they don't want to invalidate anyone's testimony or the justice system, they don't want to re-traumatize any victims, I think it's fine. I think the words are good, the message is fine. However, if we're looking at this as accountability or apology for having written those letters in the first place, we're not getting that. Again, I think the words are very carefully selected to very clearly state that they don't want to insult, hurt, or cause pain to anyone. But at no point in this are we getting a, we shouldn't have done that, or any accusation to him. So they're not jumping on that bandwagon, they're just declaring their intent. And as far as that goes, it's fine. It's just a message delivered to a camera. But again, my job is mostly to point out the behaviors and say, okay, we have some stress here, indications that this is planned here, and it is. There's a script here, there was a plan here, and indications that, you know, she's trying to emphasize these points over here, and she's trying to appeal to the audience. But at the end of the day, the morality of this is up to the individual. So you guys are as well placed to make a decision here as I am, and I look forward to hearing in the comments what you guys think of this. And were you satisfied? Do you think they should have said more? Or did they say enough? What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next one.